I am going for lowest rated video ever. That is because I am going to be denouncing Ron Paul and his ideology in this video. What I don't like about Ron Paul is that he is not so much a libertarian, but he's a neoliberal. His ideology about free markets comes almost verbatim from Milton Friedman and the Chicago School of Economics. It's no accident that he tries to associate himself with Ronald Reagan, because Ronald Reagan was very much influenced by those same people through his sponsorship through General Electric, probably one of the biggest corporations in the world, certainly a huge defense contractor. So, first of all, I do not share his faith in free markets. Okay, I think markets are very useful in a lot of cases. I think that there's a lot to be said for markets when they work, and when they work, I say that they're preferable in a marketplace that works. Why break it? It's perfectly fine to keep it the way it is. And markets usually work in cases where there's small quantities of property in large numbers. Okay, that's where markets work best. Where you have the opposite, where you've got small numbers of people who have large quantities of property, that's when you get into problems, and that's when the free market starts not to work. In fact, there are things in the market that are called natural monopolies. Natural monopolies are things that are worth more the more they are concentrated into one piece of property. An example would be the national highway system. That's a natural monopoly. You wouldn't want to have 3 different highway systems competing. That would just be ridiculous. Another example would be the internet. Having 3 or 4 or 5 internets would make no sense at all. The biggest value in connecting to the internet is the fact that everyone else is connected to it. It connects everywhere. That's what a natural monopoly is. The same could be said for a water source. If you've got a reservoir that's serving a township, well, maybe it's the only water available. It's the cheapest water available within miles. All right, that's a natural monopoly. Having that privatized and handed over to someone else to make a profit from is just begging for trouble, because it exposes the working person to so much risk of abuse. When natural resources are privatized, if someone has a monopoly or a very near monopoly of having a lot of natural resources, it makes that person in a much better negotiation position to negotiate, to deal with people who only have their labor to bargain with. Okay, and in fact, that is how labor, the fruits of labor, can be stolen from people who work for a living by those who own natural resources, own property. This, to a large degree, is what Karl Marx is writing about. Now, I don't agree with Karl Marx's conclusions at all. I think he just jumped off the boat as far as all that's concerned. But I think he did have some valid observations, and the fact that people can easily be robbed of the fruits of their own labor by having to work under circumstances where they don't own the property they're working on or working with is, that's a valid observation. And you just say, well, that could never happen. It happens all the time. All right, that's something that free markets don't address. That's something that the Chicago School would rather just sweep right under the rug and not worry about at all. But I'm telling you, it's a big concern with more and more market conglomeration, with mergers and acquisitions and companies just getting bigger and bigger and diversifying more and more. It's becoming more and more of a concern that the number of big corporations out there is getting smaller, and they're owning more of the natural resources, and they're going to hold the working man under a great disadvantage when it comes to negotiating for the product of their labor. All right, so That's what unions are about. Unions are trying to organize, to try and put the working man in a better negotiation position to get a better price for his labor, okay? Of course, the Reaganites and the free marketers just think unions are the end of the freaking world, okay? Well, it's no small wonder. They want to keep the working man down. They want people who have property, who are privileged enough to own natural resources, to keep that privilege. That's what the free market is all about, okay? And make no mistake, the only reason why it would ever be useful to interfere with the government on behalf of the people is when there is abuse going on. And that has been historically the case, that the time when the government has intervened in the free market has been when there have been abuses taking place. And, you know, the Chicago school just says, oh, forget all that history. It doesn't matter. We have this ideology, and we just know it's correct. And if these things broke in the past, well, we can always blame it on something else, right? Well, the fact is that powerful individuals, powerful corporations can easily leverage their privilege to keep the working man down. All right, it happens all the time, and you have to be aware of it. And just saying that the free market will solve everything, it will not solve that problem, ever, ever. All right. So I do not support Ron Paul because he doesn't give a damn about people who only have their labor to trade for their livelihood. Okay. It'd be nice if everyone owned property, but let's face it, there are some who are privileged to own natural resources. Some people only own their natural abilities. That's what they're born into. All right. So I don't support Ron Paul at all. I think there has to be some means of finding equilibrium with privilege and rights, and I think that it's an ongoing search, but I'm not ready to abandon it and go to free markets and say, to hell with it, look at how it broke when the Soviets tried it, or look what happened to China, and now China's doing this or that, the other. You know, not every experiment succeeds, all right? This democracy may not succeed if people lose their power, all right? So, anyways, that's all I'm going to say for now. You can click the 1 star if you want. It's all the way over to the left, okay? Bye.